I've included this short video describing the history, a brief history of corporate governance. The reason I've done this is because for those people who are not involved with governance on a day-to-day basis, it's a little bit of a mystery. So it might be good just to get a broader picture, a broader understanding of how corporate governance arose and why what I'm presenting may be a little bit different to the perception that you may have from your understanding of corporate governance. So let's start off with where modern corporate governance evolved from. In the 1980s, there was a culture of money, money, money. Greed is good. The more money you earn, the better it is. And people started doing a lot of very unethical things to make money. And what happened, of course, is that companies went bankrupt and shareholders got very upset. So what you see on the screen at the moment is a blue ball at the end of a rope. And I want you to think of this as a pendulum. So it went from the 1980s as one extreme, and there were very big disasters. BCCI in Europe, which was a bank, Maxwell and Polypec, also European companies, went bankrupt. Very large fraudulent activity going on. And after these big disasters, Cadbury in 1992, so Adrian Cadbury, studied the problem, and he made the conclusion: directors' responsibilities include safeguarding the assets of the company and preventing and detecting fraud and other irregularities. Who's responsible for these failures? Directors are. Cadbury said so. And this was a UK study. And after the Cadbury in the UK, many countries around the world came up with very similar studies. In Australia in 92, Rothwell's, Elders, Bond, Tricontinental, Pyramid, Quintex, State Bank of Victoria and South Australia, and the AWA all went bankrupt. After that, again, who's responsible? They did many studies. And so in Canada, there was the COSA report. In America, there was the COSA report. In Canada was the COCO report. South Africa was the King report. Bosch in Australia, 95. And they all concluded, directors are responsible. And they recommended very tough penalties against the directors if the management commit fraud and the directors don't pick it up. So directors are responsible for their duties of care to make sure all the legislation is complied with. Now, there were also different disasters. These are operational disasters rather than financial ones. So we're thinking about the Zeebrugge ferry, King's Cross fire in the UK, Lockerbie air disaster in the UK. So the Zeebrugge ferry, for example, they were trying to be operationally as efficient as possible. So the ferry would carry cars and passengers from the UK over to Europe. And the ferry would rush into the port and turn around as quickly as possible and lower the back gate and let cars and trucks disembark. Now, they did it too fast one day. So the ferry came in and they dropped the back of the boat, and water came in and flooded the boat. And many, many people died, if I remember properly. And again, the question was asked, who's responsible? Somebody's got to be responsible for this kind of thing. So this time, Hampel in 1998 and Turnbull followed up on Hampel, and they said, what has to happen is that directors need to have a responsibility to control risk. They need to have a system to monitor risk and to control risk. So not only is fraud a big issue, not only do you get sued for fraud, now directors are responsible for risk management. Following that, in 2001, there were very large corporate irregularities, especially in the UK and in the US. So Enron, an energy company, they deliberately created energy shortages so that the price of electricity would go up and they would make more money. WorldCom and Adelphi and Tyco and Quest in UK, Parmalat in Europe, HIH, OneTel and Ansett in Australia, all did very, very unreasonable things to make more money. And this time in the US in particular, they implemented the Sarbanes-Oxley requirements. And for many people, that was a step too far. Sarbanes-Oxley was a set of you musts, whereas the Cadbury and the Hampel reports are, the principle is you should do this, and if you don't do it, explain why not. Sarbanes-Oxley became very, very prescriptive and said, do this, do this, do this, do this. So to list in the US, you had to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley. And many people, many companies said, no, it's too hard. It's just not worth it. If we have to do all that, it's not worth having business in the US. So for them, it was a step too far. But the picture is the same. There was a disaster, management did something about it. There was a disaster, management did something about it. Disaster, management did something about it. So all the time, these corporate governance rules are reactive. The intention is to reassure the public so they would continue to invest in companies. So project governance is not so much concerned with risk. Project governance is more concerned with performance. But the history of corporate governance is that it's reactive and risk-oriented. It's focused on suing you if you don't do the right thing. So this is a very brief history of how corporate governance has developed since the earlier times in modern times.